Welcome to this next episode of Just Liberty, together with Myron Steeves, our special guest. Um, you went to a large law school known as Georgetown, I think,
I did.
and I think it's might still to this day, and maybe it was then, either the largest or second largest law school in the country, or something like that. It's up there, I
Yeah,
think,
it's
in
definitely up
size.
there. I,
Yeah.
I, I think it would fit in the top five. I'm not sure how it would rank
Mm.
higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was large. My class, I think, had 750 students,
Yeah.
which it was much larger than like Northern Illinois, for example,
Yeah.
was one that had
15 smallest last I saw, but
yeah,
yeah.
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 So the great thing about it was the elective choices are ones that
A wide range.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there were classes, as I recall, one on Ming Dynasty law,
Wow.
which a law school with 200 students uh, could go a long ways with that. In fact, as the dean of a very small law school, we had a hard time filling a 3-unit income tax class
Mm,
because there just weren't enough students to make that possible. At Georgetown, it was staggering. The elective offerings were just amazing with a school that size.
I would think. I would think. Somehow I had this North Korea seminar course that I was teaching at a small law school. And I
That's
remember the
amazing.
first time it was offered, and I don't think it exists any other law school that I know of. And apparently registration started at 7 a.m. and it was full with a waiting list at 7:03.
Wow,
And
that's
so,
amazing.
yeah, so.
It's
But that's not necessarily the norm at smaller law schools, lest people think that's usually the case. So
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of being in a large law school. At the same time, trying to get to know professors was a little intimidating.
Mhm.
I think I only really made connections with two. I doubt that more than three professors knew my name, other than when calling it off in a classroom. But I remember at Georgetown, the faculty offices were on the top floor, the fourth floor, nothing but faculty offices. And I found it kind of intimidating to go up there. And my perspective is very different, having been in legal academia almost 10 times as long as I was in law school, and realize how much as a professor you wish students would drop by. Many times in grading exams, I would think, man, I would love to talk to the student face to face and give them some guidance on how they could get things better. And I think at Trinity Law School, where I was the dean and taught for many years, it was a very small school, and there was a lot of social interaction. It helped that our faculty offices were intermixed with the classrooms, so there was a lot of intermixture there, which made it helpful. But I was pretty much in awe of some of the professors who'd done some pretty remarkable things. They had some famous people on the faculty, and that was quite remarkable.
I think a lot of times in a lot of law schools, the faculty are sort of seen as these demigods perched up on the fourth floor, whatever the floor to themselves,
Yeah,
and the students dare not approach Olympus. And
yeah,
I think there is that. I think that's more frequent across American legal academia
yeah.
than maybe some law schools would want to admit or acknowledge.
Now, one general comparison, though, and obviously Georgetown is a school with a great reputation. Trinity Law School is one that didn't really have a reputation. It was so small and way on the West Coast where it didn't make much of a difference. But there is an aspect at which I think the quality of what we discussed, which I assume is the same as what you have at Liberty, I have no doubt that it's the same at Liberty, is that presentation of differing ideas is done better than it was at Georgetown. When I was at Georgetown, it was right in the heart of the critical legal studies movement, where most of the professors were passionate about that. None of them ever disclosed the fact that they were advancing a somewhat controversial idea. They just taught it as true. And although Georgetown was a Jesuit school, one would think that it would be well steeped in natural law thinking, even if they rejected it. But the only reference to natural law in my entire curriculum was when one of my professors, not a religious person, he just threw this off as an aside, said in one class, there used to be this philosophy called natural law, which was a belief that the law was some objective principles up in the sky that judges reached up and snatched down to apply to cases. But nobody believes this anymore. That took about 30 seconds, and that was it.
That's reminiscent of Oliver Wendell Holmes,
Yes.
The Path of the Law, where
Oh, yeah.
he talks about this brooding omnipresence in the sky
Yeah.
and disavows that view. If it's omnipresent, how is it located in one place, the sky?
Yeah.
But apart from that, speaking of the law written on the heart by God as if it's some sort of archaeological relic,
Yeah.
as opposed to a reality inscribed in every human heart,
Yeah.
is
Now,
noteworthy, especially in a Jesuit
Yeah.
institution, perhaps.
And in contrast, for us at Trinity, and I
Yeah.
think this is absolutely true here at Liberty as well,
Yeah.
we do a pretty good job of making a good case for the positions we disagree with, because it's important in understanding how to make a decision to see all sides. Is that not central to being an attorney?
Well, it's interesting how Professor Alan Dershowitz came to Liberty, and he remarked that he did not imagine before that he would see the day that he would be standing at Liberty University proclaiming that it has more academic freedom than Harvard.
Isn't that amazing? But I have no doubt that he was true. There was no hyperbole there. I think that is the reality. And of course, we've seen this manifest at Stanford this last semester.
With Judge Carl Duncan.
Yeah. That one would think that a good legal education, at a minimum, is the ability to patiently hear the best case for views that you are not disposed toward, consider them deeply, and then make a rational decision based upon weighing all the evidence. That seems kind of central to the profession, and yet there's really not much interest in that in some parts of the academy. I think actually what happened at Stanford is demonstrating a kind of rot in much of legal education, and I don't think that rot is anywhere near the conventional Christian law schools that have been able to avoid that because they're following a more permanent star than is the vicissitudes of the life of the typical secular law school.
Well, to Harvard's credit, more recently, they brought in somebody, Nat Gant, who left not long ago, to kind of represent the Christian worldview and Christianity in law, but this was, of course, subsequent to having a Muslim person and I think a Buddhist or Hindu and various others. Reportedly, Dean Kagan, when she was dean at Harvard, wanted every major school of thought to be represented at Harvard. And so reportedly there have been some positive changes at Harvard along these lines that one of the Trinity faculty, Adeline Allen, in writing about the Kyle Duncan incident, actually alludes to Harvard as maybe becoming a partial exception to her generally not so elevated view of what we're talking about at other law schools across the country.
Well, and I think there are still some lingering commitments to the classical liberal tradition, not the radical leftist side as that's sometimes interpreted, but those that actually still believe the marketplace of ideas is a good thing. And if there's a lot of criticism of a viewpoint, it is good to get voices that are available to help explain those. And Harvard has a well-deserved reputation for being a great law school over the years, so it is good that there's still some lingering attention to that. But I think we're coming on hard times in many ways in academia generally. So may that continue at Harvard.
Well, on that note, we wrap up this particular episode of Just Liberty. But I'd like to continue in this vein in our next episode. Thank you for joining us.